For decades, this brand was a British institution. It was a staple. It was the one place you could walk into with nothing but pocket change and walk out with 3 carrier bags full of, well, stuff. You only went in for batteries, but you left with a massive Toblerone, a dog toy, garden shears, and a pack of 100 tea lights. But that momentum is dead. Now, you're far more likely to see closing down posters plastered on the glass. That familiar teal and yellow branding is vanishing shop by shop. The whispers about Poundland being in trouble have gotten loud because we can all see it happening. So, what on earth happened? How does a brand built on affordability fail at the exact moment everyone is desperate for affordable essentials? This is the story of the slow and frankly weird death of Poundland. Let's rewind to the glory days, because you have to understand how big this was. Founded in 1990, Poundland was built on a single genius idea: everything costs a pound. This straightforward, honest approach was a massive hit, scratching a very British itch for a bargain without any hassle, and people absolutely loved it. This was the original HighStreet treasure hunt. You'd pop in for bin bags and somehow walk out with a 6-pack of crisps you'd never seen before, a questionable workout DVD, and a new spatula. By the mid-2000s, it had transformed into an unstoppable retail giant. It expanded to over 800 shops, serving millions of loyal customers every single week. Poundland also absolutely cruised through the 2008 financial crisis. In fact, that recession was a golden age for the brand. It was aggressively opening new locations right when the economy was at its worst. It kept adding more quirky, random, and wonderful junk to its aisles. But then, things started to shift. The first killer was the most obvious one: inflation. Inflation is a wrecking ball for a fixed price model. Poundland's entire business was balanced on a knife edge. When the cost to produce, import, and transport goods goes up, the gimmick at the very core of the business starts to crumble. Suppliers started charging more, shipping costs exploded, energy bills to keep those harsh fluorescent lights on went through the roof, staff needed to be paid more, and rent kept climbing. Poundland was trapped. It was locked into its famous £1 promise. It had only 2 choices. The first was to shrink the products, and they did. Everybody saw it. The chocolate bars got thinner, the bottles of shampoo got smaller, the loo roll got less substantial. But you can only shrink a product so much before it becomes a complete joke. Eventually, Poundland was forced to crack. It had to break its one simple, sacred rule. They introduced multi-price points. That's the sterile corporate phrase for, okay, not everything's a pound anymore. Suddenly you walked in and saw items for £1.25, then £2, then £3, £5, and even £10. The second that happened, the magic was gone. The entire brand identity, the one thing that made it special, was gone. Because once you walk into a Poundland and see prices all over the place, your brain immediately asks a fatal question. What's the difference between this and B&M, or Home Bargains, or just the discount aisle at Tesco? It became a running joke in the middle of the cost of living crisis. Not even the stuff at Poundland is a pound anymore. Poundland's entire brand was simplicity. Once that was gone, what was left? But inflation wasn't the only killer. While Poundland was busy fighting its pricing problem, the entire world of retail was changing, and Poundland was left in the dust. The 20s turbocharged online shopping. The pandemic turned even the most tech-phobic grandmas into Amazon Prime masters. Next-day delivery became the minimum expectation. People demanded convenience, speed, and choice. And if they could get it cheaper online, they would. Poundland did eventually launch an online shop, but it was, to be blunt, a total joke. It was clunky. The product selection was bizarre and limited. The delivery fees often cost more than the items themselves, completely defeating the purpose of shopping there. It was a case of too little, far too late. And then, perhaps the biggest nail in the coffin, the competition. Let's call them the new kings of budget retail. When Poundland started, it was the innovator. Now, the market is overflowing with shops that took Poundland's idea and did it better. First, you have B&M and Home Bargains. They took Poundland's random aisle concept and put it on steroids. They built massive, brightly lit warehouses, usually in out-of-town retail parks with free parking. They made bargain hunting feel like an event. You go to B&M for a specific thing, but you know you're going to spend 45 minutes exploring. They mastered the treasure hunt feeling that Poundland had lost. Their aisles are packed with garden furniture, wallpaper, rugs, branded foods, and weird gadgets. They're fun. Next, you have the German supermarkets, Aldi and Lidl. Their strategy was brilliant. They competed fiercely on price and on vibe. They perfected the middle aisle, which made discount shopping feel aspirational. You'd go in for milk and eggs and come out with a high-spec pressure washer, a set of ski gear, or a viral 15-pound imitation of a 200-pound kitchen appliance. And finally, from the digital realm came the final bosses, Shein and Temu. These apps launched a direct assault on all of Poundland's non-food items. Why buy a £2 phone case, a £3 set of party decorations, or a £1.25 notebook from Poundland when you can get 10 times the variety delivered to your door for the same price or less from an app on your phone? Poundland was now surrounded. It was being beaten on price, on convenience, on quality, and on the in-store experience. And that experience is the next problem. You walk into a typical Poundland today, and it just feels tired. The lighting is harsh, the shelves often feel cluttered and chaotic, or worse, half empty, and the product mix is completely random, but not in a fun treasure hunt way. It feels like a dumping ground for leftover stock. And the hard data confirms this decline. In 2024, the closure announcements just kept coming. The company often calls these lease expirations or relocations. But let's be real, if a shop is profitable, you find a way to keep it open. These closures are a symptom of a deeper sickness. To understand the rot, you also have to look upstairs at the ownership. In 2016, Poundland was bought by a South African conglomerate called Steinhoff International. A year later, Steinhoff imploded in one of the biggest, most catastrophic accounting scandals in modern history. In the chaos that followed, Poundland was essentially orphaned, passed around as part of a complex corporate restructuring. It eventually ended up under the umbrella of the Pepco Group. But while Pepco has big plans for its brand across Europe, its UK strategy for Poundland felt cautious, reactive, and utterly confused. This brings us to Poundland's identity crisis. In a desperate attempt to find a new audience, they started blurring the lines. They introduced Pepco clothing sections, turning huge chunks of the shops into a low-budget Primark competitor. Then they added chilled and frozen food aisles, making it a mini Asda. They started selling more homewares, more party goods, more tech accessories. The result was that these moves ended up making the brand muddy and confusing. Am I here for a t-shirt, a frozen chicken, a power bank, a bag of sweets? The store doesn't know what it is, so the customer definitely doesn't know. When shoppers get confused, they just stop coming. And the real kicker is that people need a shop like Poundland right now. The cost of living crisis is still battering British households. Wages are stretched paper thin. Food banks are at a breaking point. Families are making brutal choices between heating and eating. In theory, a strong, reliable, genuinely affordable high street shop should be a lifeline. It should be having its golden age. But Poundland has failed to step up and meet this moment. The company is simply shrinking. And the worst part? People are not even surprised anymore. They've seen this happen so many times, they've become numb to it. So, is it all over? In June 2025, Pepco Group announced they were selling the entire brand to Gordon Brothers for the highly ironic price of, can you guess? £1. Yep, the entire Poundland empire was basically valued the same as a tin of beans once cost on its shelves. Their press release implies that Pepco wanted to dump the brand, which only contributed 5% of their profits, to focus on its higher margin businesses. Poundland was dead weight, they were desperate to cut loose. The brand is now in the hands of a firm that is putting together a proposed restructuring, meaning a radical top-to-bottom reinvention, putting those 825 shops and 16,000 jobs on the line. Poundland's future is no longer in its own hands. Its original story has evaporated, and now it's up to a restructuring firm to decide if a new one can even be written. But what do you reckon? Is Poundland completely finished, or do you think a massive rebrand could actually save it? What's the most random, amazing bargain you ever found in those aisles back in the day? Drop your thoughts, your best bargain hunting memories, and your predictions for the brand in the comments below. We'd love to hear your take. And if you enjoyed the video, give us a like, hit that subscribe button, and tap the bell so you don't miss any more proper deep dives like this one. Cheers for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.